I was casually scrolling through social media when a chilling post stopped me cold. A young man had posted, saying he was looking for a way to pass the time for his newly retired mother. The post described her as hardworking, able to tutor kids, clean houses, willing to work night shifts or have just one day off a week, and even willing to commute up to 2 hours each way. The comments section was overwhelmingly critical. Seriously, your poor mom. Do you even realize how many years she worked just to reach retirement, and now you want her to keep grinding? This son's selfishness is off the charts. She's almost 60 and he still wants her out there working to support him. Tutoring kids, cleaning houses, working night shifts with only one day off. This is what you call passing time? Apparently rattled by the backlash, the young man rushed to add a few clarifications. Before retiring, my mom was a senior teacher at a local public school. Tutoring kids is a piece of cake for her. After her divorce, she managed everything alone for decades. She's used to housework. And anyway, seniors have the right to work too, right? My mom doesn't want to sit around doing nothing. Is that a crime? Reading all this sent a shiver down my spine. I had just retired myself after decades as a teacher. Only last week, I accepted my son's invitation and moved from Providence to Boston, hoping to enjoy my twilight years close to him. And here I was, sitting in my son's boss's house, helping his wild little boy with homework. The boy Tommy was so restless it made my head pound. In 30 years of teaching, I had rarely come across a kid this impossible to handle. He was already in 6th grade, yet no matter how many times I patiently explained the same math problem, breaking it down into the simplest steps over and over, he just stared blankly at me, rolling his eyes, refusing to think. If it hadn't been for Eric, I would never have agreed to take on this job. At 67, after a lifetime of teaching, I had no desire left to fight these battles. When the session finally ended, Tommy's mother was waiting at the door with a bright smile and a gift bag. "Mrs. Diana, thank you so much. This is a new skincare product from my husband's company. I thought you might enjoy trying it. Tommy can be a handful. I'm counting on you." I was about to politely refuse when something struck me as odd. "Mrs. Miller," I said cautiously, "isn't your husband's company in consumer electronics? Since when do they make skincare products?" Her smile faltered for a split second before she quickly corrected me. "Oh, you must be mistaken. His company has always specialized in cosmetics." Then she added, feigning casualness, "By the way, just a heads up. We totally understand that with age things can be a bit slower. But if you need to take a bathroom break during lessons, we'll need to deduct that time from your pay. At $100 an hour, even a 5-minute break would mean deducting $8. I was stunned. 100? I thought it was $30 an hour. I blurted out. Mrs. Miller raised an eyebrow, her tone edged with impatience. 30? Are you joking? Your son told us himself. You were a senior teacher before retiring. At least 100 an hour. We already paid Eric in full yesterday. Honestly, your teaching credentials barely justify that rate. My mind buzzed, confusion closing in like a fog. Eric had told me a completely different story. He said he was at a critical point in his career, and that his boss was desperate about his son's academic struggles. He had asked me to help out as a favor, and made a point to emphasize that I should charge less, just a token. He even said each lesson would be $200 paid monthly. Now everything sounded completely different. In a flash, I thought back to that social media post. Doubt swelled inside me, snowballing bigger and heavier by the second. I refused Mrs. Miller's gift bag, made some excuse and hurried home. Between the subway, bus, and walking, the trip back usually took me nearly an hour and a half. On the way, I couldn't help pulling out my phone to check that post again. The original poster had just updated. "Stop attacking me. It's been only a couple of days since I posted and I've already lined up 2 good jobs for my mom. The pay's decent. Combined, it almost matches my own salary. Honestly, old people don't want to just sit around either. Thanks again on behalf of my mom." The comments, though, remained brutal. Young people want to sit around and do nothing, but they're fine sending seniors out to grind? Unbelievable. Curious, I clicked into the poster's profile. In just 2 days he had gained a decent number of followers and had even started taking ad deals. Maybe, just maybe, the whole story had been nothing more than a stunt to chase clicks. As I walked, my mind kept circling back to my son Eric. He had always been a good kid, thoughtful, hardworking. After his father walked out on us, It was just the two of us for more than a decade, and not once did we have a serious fight. I poured everything I had into him, worked overtime, saved every penny, to put him through graduate school. I even drained my savings to help him with the down payment on a modest 2-bedroom condo in Boston. How could he possibly do something so heartless? It had to be a misunderstanding. I clung to that thought, determined to ask him directly when I got home. As I neared the apartment, 2 new messages popped up on my phone. Mom, Lisa and I are both working late tonight. Could you pick up some groceries and make dinner? I instinctively began to type, of course, but my fingers hesitated above the screen. Normally I wouldn't have thought twice. I would have rushed to the store, excited to whip up a warm, hearty meal for my kids. But after everything that had just happened, I froze. For the first time, I paused and really thought about it. Since moving to Boston last week, aside from the first night, when Eric had personally cooked a welcome dinner, every single evening had been the same. They always claimed to be stuck at work, leaving me to handle dinner. And every night I had cooked, trying different dishes they liked, making sure they came home to a hot meal. Yet back when I was still in Providence, I remembered clearly. Their social media was full of cheerful posts about cooking together after work. Photos of new recipes they tried, captions bragging about their home-cooked meals. Even during Christmas, relatives were praising their culinary skills. Why was it that, the moment I arrived in Boston, they suddenly became too busy to cook at all? I erased the half-written reply and sent a different message instead. I'm not feeling well today. You two should grab dinner out. I'll just fix something simple for myself. Almost immediately Eric called. He sounded frantic. Mom, what's wrong? Are you okay? You can't get sick now. You still have to tutor Tommy tomorrow. Hearing his words, a surge of anger and sadness roiled inside me. I forced my voice to stay calm but cold. I'm not going. Tell your boss your mother's not well, and that she won't be going back. Before he could say anything else, I ended the call and powered off my phone. I felt sick to my stomach. Dinner was the last thing on my mind. Dragging my heavy body through the door, I didn't even bother taking off my shoes. I just collapsed onto the bed. The exhaustion wasn't just physical. It was bone deep, an ache in my soul, as if life itself had knocked me flat on my back. For the first time, a terrible thought crept in. Maybe moving to Boston after retirement, chasing after the dream of staying close to my son, had been a huge mistake. Not long after, despite claiming to be working late, Eric and Lisa both rushed home. Through the cracked bedroom door, I could hear them whispering in the living room. Their muffled voices floated through the night air, sharp and cutting. Tell me this, Lisa snapped, frustration dripping from every word. Where else do you hear about a newlywed couple letting the mother-in-law move in 6 months after getting married? I've put up with it, but now she won't even lift a finger? What, am I supposed to wait on her hand and foot? I heard, she continued, voice rising, some of my co-workers' mothers-in-law do all the housework. They come home to hot meals every night. And your mom? She's been here a week and already doesn't want to cook. Lisa's voice turned shrill, slicing through the walls. I'm telling you, if she's just going to sit around doing nothing, I can't live like this. We are not running a free boarding house. Eric's voice followed, softer, pleading. Babe, calm down. He only has me. Of course she'll take care of us. Besides, remember the plan? We get her to move in, sell her old house, use the money to pay off the mortgage early. And when we have a baby next year, she can take care of the kid too. No need for a nanny, tutor, or housekeeper. Hearing those words was like taking a hammer straight to my chest. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I gritted my teeth and refused to let them fall. Just as I was about to storm out and confront them, Eric opened the bedroom door and stepped inside. Seeing me lying on the bed, he hurried to my side, putting on a mask of concern. Mom, are you still upset? Was tutoring too much today? He coaxed softly. How about I talk to Tommy's mom and cancel tomorrow's session? You can take a day off and rest. I was about to respond when Lisa slipped in after him, wearing a smile so sweet it made my skin crawl. Diana, if you had told us you weren't feeling well, we would have come home earlier, she said, pausing just a beat before adding, her tone light and breezy as if making casual conversation. Oh, by the way, Mom, Eric's boss has a kid too. Sweet kid, just a little slow catching up in school. Since you're such an experienced math teacher, the boss would really love for you to tutor him for a few days. We weren't going to say yes at first, but you know how it is. We didn't want to risk upsetting Eric's boss and hurting his promotion chances. So I went ahead and made the schedule for you. Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays with Tommy, Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays at the boss's house, Sundays off. Hope you don't mind. The room fell into an icy silence. I was shaking with rage, my blood pressure spiking so fast I could feel it pounding in my temples. I pushed myself up from the bed, pointing at them with a trembling hand. Listen carefully, I said, my voice quivering with fury. I retired to enjoy my later years, not to come to Boston and work myself into an early grave. I have my own pension. I don't rely on you and I certainly don't need some side jobs to get by. I locked eyes with Eric, forcing the words through gritted teeth. Tell me the truth, Eric. Is there something you've been hiding from me? They froze, clearly stunned by my sudden outburst. Maybe I had been too soft for too long. After an awkward glance between them, Eric finally stammered. Mom, you're overthinking it. We were just worried you'd have trouble adjusting to retirement. You know what they say online. Lots of seniors fall into depression or dementia if they're not kept busy. He said it like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. Lisa quickly jumped in, her voice sweet and manipulative. Exactly, Diana. Eric's at a critical stage in his career. If you back out now, you could really hurt his chances. I stared at their faces, so familiar yet suddenly so strange. My heart felt frozen solid. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted Eric's phone lying on the nightstand. Before he could react, I snatched it up, held it to his face for facial recognition and unlocked it. Eric lunged toward me, panicked, but I had already turned away, flipping through his apps. In a matter of seconds I found what I was looking for. That bright red app icon. One glance at the homepage and my worst fears were confirmed. The post, the one about the young man exploiting his retired mother, was made by none other than my own son, Eric Brooks. My mind went blank with rage, so blinding I could barely form words. After everything I had done for them, I had planned to stay in Providence after retiring, to live out my days in peace. But Eric had spent months persuading me to move to Boston, playing the worried son, promising to take care of me, to make sure I was never lonely. Finally I caved, sold my old home and moved here to be closer to them. I had every intention of keeping my distance, finding my own place nearby, visiting only on weekends to cook them a meal or tidy up a bit. I had even already secured a small apartment, paid the deposit and planned to sign the lease tomorrow. I never wanted to be a burden. I had even intended to hand over the proceeds from selling my house to help them pay off their mortgage early. I thought I was doing the right thing, being the best mother I could possibly be. Never once did it occur to me that, in their eyes, I was nothing more than a cash machine. My future, my well-being neatly penciled into their financial plans. They had picked my bones clean and now they wanted to crush the marrow out of them too. I thrust Eric's phone in front of his face, forcing him to look at the post. This is the son I raised for 32 years? Arranging time-killing jobs for his mother behind her back? Is that what you call your boss these days, your online audience? Eric and Lisa both turned pale as sheets. Mom, please let me explain, Eric stuttered, struggling to find a defense but coming up empty. Lisa, sensing disaster, jumped in. We didn't have a choice, Diana. The mortgage here is crushing. We just thought, you're retired, you've got time. Why not help out a little? And hey, the money eventually goes into your own account. You're saving for yourself too. I laughed, a cold, hollow sound that didn't feel like it belonged to me. Still lying even now? I said sharply. Tell me, Eric, when you got paid for my tutoring work, were you earning $30 an hour like you told me? Eric looked away, his voice barely a whisper. No. Lisa tried to smooth things over, stepping closer, but I sidestepped her without hesitation and, with all the strength I had left, slapped Eric hard across the face. The crack of it echoed in the room. Eric stood there, stunned, clutching his cheek, too shocked to move. I had never hit him before. Not once, not in his childhood, not through all the teenage years. I had always believed in reasoning, in patience. But this betrayal? It shattered something in me that could never be repaired. After a few seconds, Eric's shock turned to fury. His face flushed red, veins popping in his neck. He shouted, Mom, you're out of line. What's so wrong with asking you to help out a little? Every parent sacrifices for their kids. You're the selfish one, only thinking about your own comfort. You're still healthy. What's wrong with pitching in while you can? So that was it. That was what he truly thought of me. All the supposed kindness, the affection, it was all conditional, all transactional. As long as I could be used, I was loved. Lisa crossed her arms, her face twisted in annoyance. Seriously, Diana. You couldn't even argue your point, you just hit him? Eric's right. You just retired and you already want to sit around doing nothing. Meanwhile, we're drowning in bills. Their voices, their words, slashed through whatever hope or illusion I had left. I looked at them, cold and detached, and said, "Fine. I'm not good enough to be the parent you want. I'll go back to Providence. You won't have to worry about me anymore." Without another word, I began packing my things, swiftly, with a calm I didn't even know I had left. "Good. Go. And don't try to guilt trip us," Eric sneered, slamming the door behind him. Lisa stayed behind, watching me with a lazy, almost mocking smile. "Diana, you're making such a big deal out of nothing. Eric's your only son. You could help him a little now. Teach those kids, ease our burden. And once we're better off, of course, we'll take good care of you." I stared at her, memorizing that face, so sweet, so calculating, and said nothing. I picked up my suitcase and, without looking back, walked out of the house that had once held all my hopes. I hailed a cab straight to the train station, bought a ticket for the next train back to Providence, the soonest I could get out. Sitting in the waiting area, I finally began to feel a sliver of calm settle over me. Just then my phone rang. It was Eric. "Mom, have you made up your mind yet?" His voice was cold, hard. There wasn't even a hint of regret or pleading. "I already took the money from your tutoring gigs and used it to buy Lisa a purse. There's no refunding it now. If you walk away and leave those 2 jobs hanging, don't even think about trying to patch things up with me later. I won't be so forgiving." Listening to him, I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Expecting any respect, any love from them now was nothing but a fool's dream. Without hesitation, I answered, my voice ice cold. "I would rather grow old alone than be used as a cash machine and a free nanny by my own son." And with that, I hung up. Then I blocked both Eric and Lisa's numbers without a second thought. Once my phone fell silent, a wave of tightness gripped my chest. I fumbled for my emergency heart pills and swallowed one dry. The train soon rumbled to life and I leaned back into my seat, closing my eyes to rest. It was then that my sister Kathy's name flashed on my phone. "Diana, you haven't sold your house yet, have you?" she practically shouted. "Don't sell it. I just heard they're about to demolish our entire neighborhood. A developer's buying up everything to build a massive shopping center. They're estimating payouts of at least $500,000 per house." My heart nearly leapt out of my chest. I hung up with Kathy, grinning so wide my cheeks hurt. Thank goodness I had been stubborn about the selling price and hadn't let go of the house too soon. That little old place had been given to me over 20 years ago as faculty housing. Sure, the building was outdated and cramped, but it sat right in the heart of the city. The school had been rooted in that downtown neighborhood for decades. No one had ever imagined it would move, and I'd never once thought of my little house as anything special. But now, according to Kathy, the school was relocating to a sprawling, modern campus in the suburbs, leaving the old campus behind to become a tiny adult education center. Developers had been circling the neighborhood like vultures, ready to swoop in. And because the news hadn't gone public yet, only insiders knew about it. Which meant my rundown little apartment was about to turn into a golden ticket. At least $500,000 in compensation. I couldn't stop smiling no matter how hard I tried. All the anger, all the bitterness from earlier, melted away like a bad dream. Life really does have a way of turning around when you least expect it. At my age, I had thought the days of big miracles were long gone, but here I was on the cusp of an unexpected windfall. Now I had no more fears about my future, no more worries about my retirement. As for that ungrateful son and his conniving wife, I was done with them. My duty as a mother ended the moment they decided to treat me like a burden. From here on out they could live their lives and I would live mine. As long as they stayed out of my way, I wouldn't waste another breath on them. Humming a cheerful tune under my breath, I wheeled my suitcase through the familiar streets of my little hometown, heading back to the life I was finally ready to enjoy, on my own terms. The first thing I did after getting home was head straight to the rental agency to take back the keys. As I walked up the familiar steps, a neighbor spotted me and rushed over, wide-eyed. "Diana, weren't you supposed to be living it up in Boston with your son? Why are you back so soon?" I forced an awkward smile. I couldn't get used to it. I guess I just prefer my own little place. The neighbor chuckled, giving me a knowing look full of thinly veiled curiosity. But I no longer cared about what people thought. Living alone was a blessing. I didn't have to tiptoe around anyone else's moods, didn't have to put on a smile for the sake of appearances. I could eat whatever I wanted, sleep in as long as I pleased, and simply live on my own terms. Sacrificing my dignity just to keep up appearances in my later years? Not a chance. But peace never lasts long. Just as I was settling into the rhythm of solitude, the family group chat exploded. My oh-so-wonderful son Eric had posted a picture. A sonogram. Eric Brooks. Good news, everyone. Lisa is 2 months pregnant. Our family is about to grow. Thank you all for your love and support. The group immediately lit up with congratulations. Congratulations, Diana. You just retired and already have a grandbaby on the way. So blessed. Eric has always been such a good kid. Finished grad school, landed a great job, bought a home in Boston, and now a baby. You must be so proud. Diana, looks like your move to Boston wasn't in vain. Now you can help take care of Lisa during her pregnancy, and once the baby's here, we'll all come visit. I stared at the screen, feeling a complicated tangle of emotions. 30 years of raising him, pouring my heart and soul into being the best mother I could be. Yes, my heart had been shattered. But could I really say I felt nothing at all now? Of course not. No matter what had happened, a new life was a blessing. Maybe, just maybe, they would understand the meaning of parental sacrifice once they became parents themselves. Lost in thought, I was pulled back by another message in the group. Diana, why aren't you saying anything? Before I could reply, Eric jumped in. Aunt Susan, maybe Mom's still mad. There was a little misunderstanding in Boston a few days ago, and she got upset and moved back to Providence. She even blocked Lisa and me. You probably didn't hear about that yet. Lisa quickly chimed in, putting on her best show. Maybe I didn't handle things well and upset Diana. I want to apologize publicly. Please don't stay mad, Diana. We're really worried about you living alone in Providence. Eric followed up almost immediately. Mom, please come back. I truly realize I was wrong. I was under a lot of pressure and wasn't thinking straight. There's no one else we can count on but you. Mom, with Lisa pregnant, how can she manage everything alone without you? The change in tone was dizzying. Real or fake? I couldn't tell anymore. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I simply stared at the screen, unmoving. The relatives, though, couldn't sit still. They started chiming in one after another. Come on, Diana, families fight sometimes. They apologized, didn't they? Just let it go. It's embarrassing for someone your age to hold a grudge. Lisa's carrying your grandchild. You should be more understanding and come back to Boston. I stared at their familiar names, a cold laugh bubbling up inside me. What did they know about anything? I finally replied with a single calm message. Thank you for your concern. The kids are grown. It's better for everyone if we live separately. I thought that would end it. But Eric immediately shot back. Mom, you replied. I'm so glad. I'm actually on the train to Providence right now. I'm coming to pick you up personally. Reading that, I froze for a moment. Barely 2 days had passed and now he was rushing back to make amends? Had he really realized he was wrong? Or was there something else behind this sudden urgency? While the group chat kept buzzing with relatives telling me to forgive and forget, I quietly turned off my phone's internet. I was done listening. That evening the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Eric standing there, arms full of shopping bags. He stepped inside, set everything down and bowed deeply, his face plastered with a sycophantic smile. Mom, I'm so sorry, he gushed, words spilling out like a rehearsed monologue. I really messed up. I was under too much pressure. I lost my mind thinking you should help us out financially. I was being stupid. Then, as if to prove his remorse, he slapped himself hard across the face. Please, Mom. Now that Lisa's pregnant, can you just come back with us? I really need you. Just this one big favor, okay? I sat on the couch, silent, watching this son of mine grovel. My emotions churned, anger, sorrow, confusion, and a small, painful tug of doubt. After all, this was the child I had raised with everything I had. Maybe I had overreacted? Maybe he truly regretted it? Sensing my hesitation, Eric seized the moment. He lunged forward and hugged me. I knew it, Mom. You're always soft-hearted. Lisa's carrying your grandbaby. You wouldn't want her to go through pregnancy without support, right? Let's head back to Boston tomorrow, the whole family together again. He sounded so certain, so sure he had me right where he wanted. I didn't respond, and that gave him more confidence. He knelt in front of me, lowering his voice like he was about to share some tender secret. "There's just one more thing, Mom. Please don't get upset." His eyes darted away, his voice dropping to a mumble. "Lisa still feels a little insecure about the house being bought before the marriage. So she made a small request." He swallowed hard. "She was hoping you'd hand over your pension card for her to manage. Just to cover some prenatal nutrition expenses and, baby costs." He couldn't even look me in the eye. I sat frozen, trembling with fury, glaring at him. How could a person be this shameless? Seeing the anger build on my face, Eric rushed to backpedal. "Okay, don't be mad. That's just Lisa talking crazy. She's hormonal, emotional, you know how it is. I was just testing the waters. If you're not okay with it, forget I said anything." Then, as if that wasn't bad enough, he added quickly, "But I did come up with a compromise. Once you sell your place here and move back to Boston, you could transfer the sale money to Lisa. She'll use it to pay off the mortgage early. And maybe we could add her name to the deed, just to help her feel secure." That was it. I snapped. I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. The sound cracked through the air. Eric stared at me in disbelief, a red handprint already blooming on his cheek. "Diana, are you insane? Hitting me again? You think I won't fight back just because you're my mom?" He backed away into a corner, hand clutched to his face, eyes wide with shock. I stood over him, a storm of grief and rage rising in my chest. "You ungrateful, unrecognizable child. I should have slapped you a long time ago. Eric Brooks, I never imagined the boy I raised with blood, sweat, and tears would turn into this." Tears poured down my cheeks as my voice cracked with every word. "Do you remember who stayed up all night when you were sick? Who stood in the kitchen cooking for you while burning up with fever herself?" But before I could go on, Eric shouted back with eyes burning red. "Stop using that against me, Diana. You're the one who decided to bring me into this world. Did you ask me if I wanted that? You think being a mother makes you a martyr? Please. Every mom does that. You want to sit around enjoying your retirement while I bust my ass in Boston? You don't think that's selfish?" Every word, sharp, cruel, deliberate, drove into me like a blade. He had learned exactly how to stab a mother where it hurt the most. Suddenly my tears stopped. I stood there dry-eyed, hollow. He didn't deserve my pain. He didn't deserve another drop of my tears. "You're right," I said coldly. "I was wrong. Wrong for never teaching you to respect your mother." Eric exploded again, raging blindly. "Yes, you were wrong. If you hadn't taken me away from Dad, I'd probably own a house by now, living large. And by the way, Dad reached out. If I change my last name back and acknowledge him as my father, he's offering us $50,000. So that was it. Their grand plan." I let out a bitter laugh. "Your beloved father? The one who ditched you like trash when he ran off with his mistress? The same man who kicked you in the chest on his way out the door. Remember that? Fine. If that's the money you want, go get it. You and your unborn child can carry whatever name you like. But you are never setting foot in my home again." I stormed to the door, grabbed all the bags Eric had brought and tossed them outside like garbage. Because that's all they were now. Trash. Eric stood there, pounding on the door, hurling curses, yelling my name. I locked the door and didn't respond. Eventually, the night swallowed up the noise and everything fell quiet. Within minutes, the family group chat exploded again. Eric had posted 2 dramatic, scathing messages that left everyone stunned. Eric Brooks. Today I learned how cruel a mother can truly be. She acts like a dignified, kind retired teacher, but in reality, she cast out her own son without a shred of compassion. Eric Brooks. Diana Brooks, God sees everything. Over a little bit of money, you kicked your son out like trash and ignored your unborn grandchild. Don't come crawling back later begging for forgiveness because I won't be there. The moment those messages hit, the group chat lit up with ringing phones and frantic texts. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Relatives were calling me non-stop. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I calmly dropped a bomb of my own. I posted the link to Eric's original online post, the one where he tried to outsource his retired mother for side jobs. Then I uploaded screenshots of every comment he had made with clear annotations. Beneath them, I wrote out the full story step by step for everyone to see the truth with their own eyes. The group fell eerily quiet. Then, inevitably, the peacemakers showed up. Uncle Paul, Kids make impulsive mistakes. He's just under a lot of pressure. As a parent, shouldn't you try to be more understanding? Aunt Grace. Exactly. Was it really worth cutting off your only son over something like this? Diana, you need to think carefully. Ah, the classic voices of detached judgment. So quick to preach when it's not their life on fire. I didn't respond to a single one of them. Instead, I dropped another bomb. The surveillance footage. Yes, I had security cameras at home, and I posted the entire uncut video of Eric's visit, including his absurd demands and his vicious accusations. That silenced everyone. Even the relatives who usually loved inserting themselves into drama suddenly had nothing to say. After a long stretch of silence, Eric quietly left the group chat. Lisa followed him out shortly after. From that day forward, no one in the family dared to speak up on their behalf. In fact, the tide turned. One by one, relatives began condemning Eric and Lisa for being selfish and disgraceful. I didn't even bother to read the rest. I shut off my phone and moved on. For a long time after that, Eric didn't contact me again. I assumed, perhaps foolishly, that he had finally felt some shame. Maybe, just maybe, he had accepted defeat and moved on. And for a while my life returned to peace. I filled my days with joy and color. Flower arranging, piano lessons with old friends, dance rehearsals on sunny afternoons. I was busier than ever and happier than I'd been in years. The school's relocation plans also moved steadily forward. After several rounds of resident meetings, the latest estimate was in. My old staff housing would earn me around $520,000 in compensation. In a city like mine, that kind of money meant I could live with ease and elegance for the rest of my life. I even took the time to visit a lawyer and drafted a formal will. If anything were to happen to me, every penny of my assets, not 1 cent, would go to Eric. Everything would be donated to local orphanages, to children who actually needed and deserved help. My life felt full again. Until one afternoon during Latin dance rehearsal, an explosion I didn't expect blew through the room. We were mid-routine, music pulsing, when a shrill voice cut through like a knife. "You witch." Diana Brooks. "My daughter's been crying every day in Boston, pregnant and suffering, while you sit here dancing like royalty." A woman stormed in, wild-eyed, screaming as she charged across the studio. Before I could react, she yanked me away from my dance partner with shocking force. I staggered, nearly losing my balance. If not for my partner's quick reflexes, I might have hit the floor. The moment I recognized the face, my expression darkened. It was Marcia White, Lisa's mother. I steadied myself and said firmly, my tone cold and restrained, "Watch your mouth. This is a public space. If you have something to say, we can step outside." Marcia scoffed, raising her voice even higher. "What's the point? I'll say it right here. You heartless woman. Your son begged you to come help. He begged you, and you ran back here to enjoy life while Lisa suffers." She pointed her finger at me, her voice practically vibrating with venom. My dance partner, a retired theater director known for his calm demeanor, looked visibly shaken with fury. He stepped forward, voice like steel. "Ma'am, you need to leave. Diana is a friend of mine, and if you continue making defamatory statements in public, I will not hesitate to involve legal counsel. My daughter is a lawyer and we are not afraid of courtrooms." Marcia faltered slightly, startled, but still refused to back down. "Oh, so you're in this together? No wonder you're so eager to defend her. Must be having a little affair, huh?" The moment the words left her mouth, the women around me, my friends, my neighbors, surged forward, outrage written all over their faces. Then came another shrill voice from behind. "Let go of her. Don't you dare gang up on my mother." I turned. There stood Lisa, her belly just beginning to show, leaning against the wall. She limped slightly, supported by Eric. His face was twisted in fury as he pointed at me. "So this is what it's about? You ditched your only son because of some old man? You're planning to give my inheritance away to him, is that it?" Lisa stood by his side, her tone icy and disdainful. "We're not against you dating again, Diana. But we need to protect you from being manipulated. That's why we're asking, hand over your house and pension. Let us manage it. We won't interfere with your personal life. We just want you to be safe." "Safe? From who?" "Them." I held back my partner with a quick glance, then stared down the two people who once called me Mom. My voice was low and firm. "You claim to care about my safety. But the truth is, The only danger in my life has ever come from you two. You parade around saying it's for my own good, when all you want is to drain my retirement and snatch what little I've earned. No more masks. No more sugarcoating. In front of everyone, my friends, the dancers, the staff, I laid everything bare. From the moment they coaxed me to Boston to the manipulative schemes, the house sale trap, the unpaid labor. I told it all. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I spoke, but I didn't flinch. I worked my whole life. I raised my son alone. I paid for his education, his home, his future. And this is how he repays me. Maybe I wasn't the perfect mother, but I gave everything. And now all I ask for is a peaceful, simple retirement. Is that really too much? Gasps, murmurs, silence. Around us the air shifted. Eric and Lisa were no longer pitted. They were exposed. People looked at them with disgust and disappointment. Eric's face went pale, then red, then white again. He clenched his fists but didn't speak. Marcia grabbed Lisa's arm. Eric helped steady her, and the three of them shuffled out, faces burning, backs hunched under the weight of their disgrace. They didn't look back. And I didn't call after them. I thought that was the end of it. Surely after everything they'd finally leave me alone. But the very next morning I arrived at the dance studio to find a massive banner draped across the front entrance. The walls were plastered with vicious posters, loud and obscene. Diana Brooks abandons her family to seduce an old man. That was what the banner screamed in bold red letters. The posters went even further, filled with insults too vulgar to repeat. People stopped in the street to gawk and take photos. Some pointed, others whispered. My dance partner, the same gentle, dignified man who had stood by me through it all, was so outraged his heart gave out. He collapsed on the spot and had to be rushed to the hospital. Thank God they got to him in time. He survived. I didn't waste a second. I called the police. It didn't take long for them to trace the stunt back to the culprits. Eric, Lisa, and Marcia. The three of them had orchestrated it together. They were taken into custody immediately. Lisa, being pregnant, was released quickly. But Eric and Marcia were formally detained and served 7 days behind bars. I refused to settle. I refused to forgive. I hired a lawyer and formally filed charges: defamation, harassment, and damage to personal reputation. While they sat in a cell, I was busy too. If they could try to destroy my name in public, then so could I unveil the truth. I submitted a full report to Eric's employer. How he manipulated me into tutoring his boss's child, hoping to win favor and boost his chances at promotion. The company was appalled. By that evening, Eric was suspended without pay, pending further disciplinary action. 7 days later, Eric and Marcia stumbled out of the detention center, humiliated and exhausted. The moment Eric learned what I'd done while he was locked up, he flew into a rage and stormed to my building, shouting through the hallway. "Fine, Diana Brooks. Since you want to be so heartless, I, Eric Brooks, officially sever all ties with you." Good. That was exactly what I wanted. I immediately contacted my lawyer. We drafted and signed all the documents needed to divide any shared assets. Not that there was much to sort. Property, accounts, savings. Everything remained with its rightful owner, clean and simple. I went one step further. I called the local paper and published a public statement. I had officially disowned Eric Brooks. When I stepped out of the law office afterward, I felt lighter than I had in years. But Eric wasn't done. Outside the building, he shouted after me with a sneer. "Laugh while you can, Diana Brooks. You got some pension, sure. And a crappy old house. But wait until that geezer drains you dry. And you're too old to walk. Then we'll see who's sleeping on a park bench." He smirked and raised his voice for everyone to hear. "Oh, by the way, dinner's on my dad tonight. We're celebrating. I've officially changed my last name back to White. And when our baby is born, there'll be a White too. None of this has anything to do with you anymore." Lisa cackled beside him, her voice shrill and gleeful. "Your dad even promised to help pay off our mortgage. Sweetheart, you're a genius." I couldn't help but laugh. Not out of anger but out of sheer disbelief. Eric's beloved father? The same man who abandoned him as a toddler to run off with a mistress? That father later had a child with the mistress. Only to find out last year after a DNA test that the kid wasn't even his. He'd spent over a decade raising someone else's son, burned through his savings, got buried in debt, and finally disappeared to escape loan sharks. I knew all of this. Had known it for years. But I never told Eric. I wanted to spare him the shame. I didn't want to wound him with the truth. And now here he was grinning like he'd won some grand prize. They were laughing like they'd outsmarted me. I didn't say a word. I turned to leave. And that's when fate gave me its final twist. As I was stepping off the curb, a familiar voice called out. Diana. What a coincidence running into you. It was an old colleague, beaming. We exchanged pleasantries. Then he asked casually, Hey, did you sign off on the demolition plan for the staff housing? I heard most of us are buying in the same new neighborhood. Wouldn't it be great if we ended up neighbors again? His voice wasn't loud, but just loud enough for Eric and Lisa to hear. I saw their bodies go rigid like they'd been struck by lightning. Then Eric bolted toward us, stumbling over his own feet. Demolition? What demolition? He gasped. My colleague blinked in surprise, assuming Eric was just late to the news. The old faculty housing is being torn down, he said casually. Full redevelopment. The payout's huge. By my count, your mom's unit should net at least $500,000. I smiled politely, then corrected him loud and clear. Mike, just a heads up. These two are no longer my family. We've legally severed ties. Mike looked stunned, speechless. Eric, meanwhile, stood frozen. His face contorted, pale, stiff, as though the universe had turned to stone around him. Lisa swayed, color draining from her face, nearly fainting on the spot as Eric caught her just in time. I didn't bother looking back. I climbed into my car. And just before the door shut, I cast one final glance at them. Eric was holding on to Lisa, both rooted in place like broken statues. Sighs. A storm of regret, fury, helplessness, and disbelief. A masterclass in emotional collapse. But I didn't flinch. I shut the door. And finally, I left. I was in high spirits. To celebrate, I treated myself to a lavish dinner at a nice restaurant downtown, savoring every bite in quiet satisfaction. By the time I strolled back home, night had already fallen. As soon as the elevator doors opened, I saw them. Two figures I knew far too well. Eric and Lisa. The moment they spotted me, Eric lit up with a wide, eager smile. Mom. Diana. They called out in unison, not even a flicker of shame on their faces. As if the last few weeks, full of insults, lawsuits, and public humiliation, had never happened. I nearly laughed aloud. Was this a family reunion or a fundraising pitch? Amazing how fast principles crumble when money's on the table. Money really can make the devil dance. I didn't say a word. Just pulled out my keys and went straight for the door. Eric trailed after me, trying to push his way inside. I blocked him coldly, my tone flat and frosty. Sorry, Mr. White. This isn't your home anymore. And you're not welcome here. Eric plastered on his best grin. Mom, please don't be like this. Just let us come in for a moment, okay? Look at Lisa, she's pregnant. We waited out here all night for you. My voice dropped even colder. I didn't ask you to wait. You could wait a lifetime out here and it still wouldn't concern me. I raised my hand to close the door. But Eric forced his weight against it, stronger than me, keeping it from shutting. I pulled out my phone, ready to call the police. And then he dropped to his knees. Right there in the hallway. Tears welled up in his eyes as he sobbed. Mom, I'm sorry. I really am. I messed up. I see that now. Please forgive me. Bye, Dad. He's a disaster. Last night he tried to rope us into covering his debts. It's a nightmare over there. I stared down at him and said evenly, You're apologizing to the wrong person. Didn't you read today's paper? We're legally no longer related. Eric's face turned pale. He shook his head frantically. That was just anger, just a fight. I didn't mean any of it. I was a complete fool to make you work after retirement. And taking your tutoring money? God, I don't even deserve to be called your son. He slapped himself hard across the face. Once, twice. Lisa, standing beside him, began to cry too. It was me, Diana. I was greedy. I admit it. Please, give us another chance. We'll treat you better, we promise. I watched them with ice in my veins and a smirk in my heart. Another chance? You two change faces faster than stage actors. But tell me something. Are you here because you still recognize me as your mother? Or because you think my bank account looks maternal? Eric crawled a few steps closer, still kneeling, desperation pouring off him. Mom, I'm your only son. In the end, your money's going to me anyway, isn't it? You wouldn't give it all to strangers, would you? At this point I had seen straight through them. But I wanted to see how far they'd go. So I sighed deeply and put on my best impression of reluctant forgiveness. Fine, I murmured, pretending to waver. Maybe I'll give you one last shot. But first. I let the silence stretch, then added slowly, there's something I haven't told you. I've been diagnosed with cancer. Treatment will cost at least $300,000. They both froze. If you're willing to sell your Boston house and pay for my treatment, then I'll believe you're sincere. Eric and Lisa exchanged stunned glances. Eric, ever the tactician, asked cautiously, don't you have that big relocation payout coming soon? Why would you need us to pay for treatment? Lisa jabbed him hard in the ribs, then forced tears back into her voice. Oh no, Diana, cancer? But you look so healthy. I sighed again, sorrow painting my features. A lifetime of exhaustion takes its toll. I was diagnosed with lung cancer last year. I just didn't tell you. The payout hasn't come through yet, might take months. Eric narrowed his eyes. Do you have any medical records? Test results. I kept my voice low and pained. Kathy has them. She took them to consult a specialist for me. I added mournfully. If you can't help, I understand. I'll just figure something out myself. Live one day at a time. Eric opened his mouth, but Lisa twisted his arm again. She gritted her teeth and said, we'll sell the house. No matter what, your health comes first. I gave a slow, deliberate nod, saying nothing. Then after a long pause I sighed once more. Once the house is demolished, I won't have anywhere to live. Eric hesitated. Maybe we could rent you an apartment for now? So I stayed silent. Lisa clenched her jaw and made the final move. No, forget that. We'll put you in a senior living facility. Somewhere nice. I finally smiled. Then let's see what you do next. The two of them left, quietly, thoughtfully, each calculating their next move, each chasing a prize they thought they were smart enough to win. I never expected them to actually follow through. But less than a week later I opened my bank app and saw it. $300,000 wired straight into my account by Eric. I was surprised, to say the least. There's no way they sold their Boston house that quickly. So where did that money come from? Eric showed up that evening, practically glowing with pride. He swaggered in and said smugly, Mom, now that I've shown you how sincere I am, don't you think it's time to tear up that disownment agreement? I gave him a cool look and said evenly, sure. Right there in front of him I shredded the legal document. What he didn't know, what he never thought to ask, was that my will had already been finalized long ago. With or without a piece of paper, I had no intention of ever letting them near a dime of my estate. Eric and Lisa's eyes sparkled with barely concealed glee. You could see it in their faces. They thought the money was as good as theirs. So Mom, Eric started, licking his lips. When does that $500,000 payout hit your account? I smiled lightly. Soon. But in the meantime I've found a small retirement community I really like. The unit's only a bit over $100,000. Why don't you two go ahead and buy it for me? Eric frowned. Mom, we just gave you $300,000. After all that, we're pretty tight on cash ourselves. I let my smile drop. Sounds like someone isn't being very sincere after all. Lisa stiffened, jaw clenched. Then after a tense silence she forced a grin. Buy it. Of course. If that's what makes you happy, we'll find a way. He paused, then added sweetly. But Mom, since we're buying the house for you, shouldn't you make sure everything is in order? You know, maybe draft a will that leaves all your assets to Eric. I smiled again. Naturally. But the house deed needs to be in my name only. And I want a notarized declaration that this is a voluntary gift, just so I feel secure. Lisa's face turned pale, but she nodded. What choice did she have? So they bought the house. I moved in. And I made no move to update my will. Eric, demoted at work and struggling to avoid being laid off, returned to Boston to claw back some stability. Lisa, on the other hand, stayed behind in Providence. She doted on me like a saint. Cooking, cleaning, smiling till her cheeks hurt. Working every angle to convince me to draft a new will in Eric's favor. Even Marcia showed up. She moved in with Lisa to help with the pregnancy, but made sure I had hot meals delivered daily. They even rented an apartment in my building, just to keep tabs on me. Weeks passed. The relocation compensation finally arrived. And still, I made no move to sign a new will. Lisa and Marcia grew anxious, then desperate, until one day they ran out of patience. Behind Eric's back, they quietly replaced my blood pressure medication with something else. Small, unmarked pills I didn't recognize. But what they didn't know was that when I moved into this house, I'd had a few tiny additions installed. Several hidden cameras. Not just the visible high-def security cam in the living room. Multiple, hidden, motion-triggered eyes tucked into corners they never noticed. Because when you're sitting on $500,000, surrounded by wolves in designer shoes, you learn to sleep with one eye open. They waited for the power to go out before making the switch, thinking the cameras were disabled. They had no idea they were still being recorded. When the footage was revealed, the police had enough to act immediately. Lisa and Marcia were arrested on the spot. They insisted it was a mistake, that they had accidentally mixed up my medication. But the pills were tested. The intent was clear. Attempted murder was not something they could explain away. Eric rushed back from Boston in a panic. When he arrived at the police station, Lisa was already sobbing in his arms. Eric, I thought she was already dead. We figured the money would be ours. But she hid cameras everywhere. Eric stood frozen, staring at her, then at me. His voice trembled. Mom? You were watching us the whole time? But even after we gave you that money, bought you a house, you still didn't trust us. I looked at him calmly. And did you deserve my trust? That $300,000 you transferred, it didn't come from selling your Boston house. You took out a high-interest loan and mortgaged your property. You figured once my compensation came in, you'd use my money to plug the hole. Eric's face drained of color. He looked like he might collapse. Lisa was already curled up on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably and smacking Eric's arm as if it were all his fault. The trial didn't take long. Lisa and Marcia were both convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to prison. Eric wasn't spared either. With no money to repay the loan, the bank repossessed his house. And the loan sharks? They weren't interested in patience or pity. He disappeared soon after, hiding from collectors, jobless and humiliated. As for me, the moment I was discharged from the hospital, I bought a plane ticket and flew abroad. Just to clear my head. By the time I returned home, everything had settled. No more calls. No more messages. No more games. Some relatives gossiped behind my back. Some neighbors whispered at the grocery store. How could such a good boy end up like that? That Diana, she must have been difficult. I didn't respond. Didn't correct them. Didn't care. Instead, I gathered a few of my closest girlfriends, widows, divorcees, lifelong bachelorettes, and we moved to a lovely little town in Northern California. Bought a charming house with a sunlit yard. Planted herbs, raised cats, and took turns cooking. We sang. We danced. We laughed so much it made the walls tremble. Who says retirement means clinging to children for survival? Well, financial independence and a tribe of true friends. That's the real golden ticket. And I was finally living like royalty.